all of you from the 5th We Talk at Fiba CP meetings, which we started in June last year. I'm CP'de. Today, we are together with two very important names of the European retail industry. Yurdaer Kahraman, CEO and board member of Fiba CP, who is also our host, and the author of the book, Future Ready Retail, designer, retail strategist, futurist, and Portland Design General Manager, Mr. İbrahim İbrahim. Welcome. So, yes, welcome today, and we're very much looking forward to a nice chat. And hello, Mr. İbrahim. Great to have you with us. Could you tell us about how you met Mr. Kahraman and also about Portland Design?
Yes, of course. I met Yurdaer about 15 years ago at an event, actually, for the German shopping center operator and owner, Üyesi, where I did a talk and a presentation on the future of retail. And it was quite well received, and we had some very interesting conversations afterwards with Yurdaer. And from there, our friendship started and grew. And we've constantly had many interesting conversations and insightful conversations. And I hope this is going to be one of them.
Very nice. And what about Portland Design? Could you give us a little bit of a brief introduction to Portland Design as well?
Yes, of course. Portland Design started business in 1987. We are a place, strategy and retail design business, and we work on a very broad range of projects completely globally, ranging from urban regeneration to shopping malls, all the way through to airports and railway stations, and as well as mixed-use developments. And we also work for retailers and brands. We create experiences for retail brands and product and service brands. So really broad range, broad scale of projects. And we're working for global brands like Nestle and Diageo, all the way through to the new future Winter Olympic site in Milan in 2026, to some urban regenerations projects in Amsterdam, in Milan. Of course, we've done many projects in Istanbul, but also working in the States. We're doing 3 terminals at JFK Airport. So yeah, many projects.
Thank you very much for sharing that information with us. And moving to you, Mr. Kahraman, we would like to get your opinions on the current situation of the retail industry, both in our country and in the world.
Well, I mean, we should start still with the experience countries are doing with COVID-19, and there are some slowly recovering, let's say, and entering to the new normal. But since I had today in the morning a call and a meeting with our team in China, for example, and there we have still the situation that the retail sector is heavily affected by the lockdowns still ongoing in China, unfortunately. They do an amazing job over there, because 1 week is a lockdown, 3 days the operation running, and afterwards again a lockdown. And other countries is like COVID got a normal sense, and life is ongoing. And we do see, above all, what we have seen May, June, July, August, and also September in Eastern Europe, as well as, for example, in Turkey, that we had a very huge increase of the frequencies as well as of the turnovers. We were very happy to see that, but that is also because of our preparation during the phases of lockdown, that we have changed a lot in design and concepts and in functional areas of the shopping malls, and did our asset management in that manner quite well, that we could achieve numbers of 219 and overcome those numbers as well. So these are, I think, still ongoing processes, what we see. And we have also seen new concepts coming up. And what we have done, for example, in different malls, that we really merge entertainment and education to the so-called edutainment, and where we have increased, for example, the dwell time of the people, which was also a very huge challenge, having this COVID around and surrounded us, that we need to take care how we increase the dwell time and how we secure people's and visitors coming in and out. So I do think the situation, or the fact is that people are coming back. People want to be in physical stores, and people want to make the experiences again, and people want to be outside, and that gives us a lot of chances when we do the right things, and also think about technologies, new technologies, which are important, not only in digitalization. I think we should no more talk about should we do digitalization or not. I think it is a must. And the point is what we are doing, and also technologies in terms of payments and technologies in terms of different concepts as well, and reaching the customers as much as possible. And because of their interests, which increase, and their knowledges, by the way, because they are very much informed and they know very much what they need. And I think for this, we need to be more prepared than ever.
Very interesting and very exciting developments. Thank you very much for sharing. And now back to you, Mr. Ibrahim. A three-pronged question, actually. So first of all, what are your thoughts on the future of the retail industry? And what do you foresee will change in the retail industry in 10 years? And finally, what kinds of changes and innovations should there be in the sector, both from the perspective of the retailer and the investor? Lots to think about.
Indeed, indeed. Well, let me start by making a kind of general observation, and that is that the changes we're experiencing in retail are tectonic. There've never been changes that we've experienced that are so fast and so unexpected. And these changes are not driven by technology. They're not driven by design or architecture or real estate trends. They are driven by a fundamental shift in the relationship between brands and people themselves. So between the customer and the brand, but much more importantly, how customers interact with each other. And of course, that I'm referring to, of course, social media and how brands part of community. The second general comment I will make, because it drives all change now, and that is, unless a brand, when I say a brand, I don't just mean a product brand or a service brand, I mean a place brand. A shopping center is a brand. Unless a brand is connected to culture, it won't survive. And when I say connected, I don't mean just hack into culture, I mean shape culture. And I think that's kind of really critical. And you can see the most successful brands are brands that drive culture first and product second. So what we've got to do as a brand is we've got to shift from being a product brand or a product business, if you like, or a real estate business to a story business, and how we shift. And I think, again, a general comment, I want to start with a whole series of general comments to give you an indication of where this conversation is going to go and what my general opinions are. And that is, and this may become as a shock to many real estate owners, and that is, the future of retail is not about real estate, it's about content. That's the first C, and we talk a lot about the 3 C's. So it's not about real estate, it's about content, but it's also about culture and community. So we've got to develop the content that drives and shapes culture, that builds community. Product is a byproduct of all that. It comes after that. And those 3 C's are really, really key. Now, my fear, though, is, and I think those 3 C's and what I've just said is immutable. I don't think it's in debate, actually. But my fear is that, and this is not just in Turkey, I'm thinking really the global real estate industry. I'm not certain that the way it is structured currently is fit for purpose. And I know that's controversial to say, and maybe as a consultant, I've got the luxury of saying it because I'm not one building buildings and taking risks, but that's my job. As a consultant, I'm here to provoke, and I hopefully provoke a conversation, but not provoke just to annoy people. So I don't think it's fit for purpose for many reasons. The main reason is that the whole premise of the real estate industry is based on investment. It's the investment which is driven by the valuation of the real estate. The valuation of let's just think about shopping malls to keep it simple. It's more than just shopping malls, but let's just think about shopping malls. The value of the shopping mall is what drives everything. It attracts investment, it detracts investment, it attracts interest. It basically is the living, breathing bloodstream of the industry, the valuation of the real estate. What's interesting is that it's the valuation model that's being disrupted, because the valuation model is based on 2 things. It's based on length of lease and covenant, which is basically covenant, for those who don't know, means the value, if you like, of a tenant brand. If it's Zara, it has a really big covenant. If it's a small independent local brand, it has a low covenant. And depending on the covenant, that drives the value, along with the length of the lease. Well, if we agree that all retail can only be driven really by one thing, and that is by consumers and what they demand, two things are happening. Number one, we're seeing consumers turning to independent, smaller brands. In fact, we're seeing big brands like Unilever, Procter & Gamble acquiring small craft brands, because in society, the societal shifts are that people are turning away from big faceless brands that all they're there to do is sell them things. They're turning to brands which have a bigger purpose, and a bigger purpose for the planet, for the people, for their daily lives. So if we're going to see an increasing amount of space in a shopping mall taken by smaller, independent, and very importantly, digital first, social first brands, that touches on the point of covenant. In other words, less and less in proportion of our tenants will have high covenant. The second point about lease lengths is that generally, and Yurdaer can bear this out, generally the trend in the world is that brands are committing to shorter and shorter leases, to a point where we're looking now at assets that are being rented by the day. So, but that comes back to my point. The future of retail is not about real estate, it's about content. So if it's about content, the future of shops is not about fixed concrete boxes with glass fronts. It's about stages for content, which are short leases. So the short lease reduction in covenant is affecting the valuation of real estate. And that's why we're seeing much more activity amongst funds, amongst investors. They're becoming much more active. Long gone are the days where they buy an asset, they get their 6-7% a year and go to sleep. That's not going to happen in the future. So to me, that is what's really disrupting. That's the disruption focus of the industry. And so why do I say it's not fit for purpose? In the book, I talk about the people revolution. And that is, if we accept that the future is no longer, I mean, let me just qualify what I'm saying. Whenever I talk about this stuff, I do generalize, okay? Because mainly for the purpose of provocation, but also the fact there's always an exception. But if we say, and we kind of explore this idea that the future of retail is not going to be as much about shops with shelves for sale, but it's going to be more about stages with experiences to share, where the consumer will be driven from the physical space, which will be the beginning of the journey, to downstream to online and social platforms for transaction. So if that's the case, then there's another disruption in the revenue model, which affects the valuation. And that is that if we accept that less and less of the space in a shopping center is going to be about transaction, then the model of rent, which is based on turnover, which seems in the industry to be something new, which I worry about the industry if they think that turnover rent is something new. It seems to me that this seems to be the new kind of trend, and it's not new at all. But if they think that the future is the future savior, if you like, of the rent model is turnover rent, my argument is that more and more of your tenants will not be turning over anything other than people and experience. So how are you going to capture? And this is the holy grail. This is the key point. And I don't know if I am answering your question, but anyway, I think it's interesting. This is the key point. I believe, and again, I'm generalizing, we don't know which proportion or what proportion. Is it 50% of the space? Is it 80% of the space? But my kind of, my provocation to the industry, I suppose, is if less and less of the space we rent is for transaction and more of it is for experience, as landlords, we have got to find a way to proving to a tenant, whether that tenant is a retailer or a brand, what the value of that space is, not to sell product, but to drive media impressions. How can we measure the ability of a physical space to allow a brand to put on an experience that drives interest, followership, and live stream views, and all the other aspects of media impression that we refer to media impression.
Thank you.
In other words, we've got to capture the data. But what I'm saying is that the retail now ceases to be a shop, but it begins to become a media platform. So we're no longer in the retail business, we're in the media business. And if we accept, and I say it could be 50%, it could be 10%, I don't know. To a certain extent, we're going to be in the media business. If we accept that, and this is the people revolution piece, I believe that the real estate industry is not fit for purpose, because the people that are going to make this media platform work are not property people, are not people that lease boxes with glass fronts to all their names of brands in their black box. You know, this is about bringing on people who are data analysts, who are from the hospitality industry, who are social media specialists, who are stage managers, they're journalists, they're storytellers, they're ethnographers. A whole bunch of people must come into the industry. And more importantly, more of those people have got to be women, because the alpha shopper, and every piece of research, and please read Why She Buys by Paco Underhill, who's the guru of retail books and writing. The alpha shopper is a female. And many, many meetings that I go to with investors, with funds, and with owners of shopping centers are full of grey men in suits who do not shop. And that is a fundamental problem with our industry.
Fascinating. Thank you very much for those.
And I'm sorry I'm wearing a grey suit. It's not normal for me.
Well,
Mr. Kahraman, we have thoughts.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, the items and the concepts Ibrahim was able to present now is a huge challenge for us as investors, as well as asset management companies. And there are some items, you know, which can be involved or implemented quicker than the other. But we need to really see the development in general as well. I mean, people are really changing. People in the Z generation, as well as the elder generation, and depending on the demographic structures in the countries as well, or at the local areas. I mean, everything can run fine, and then you are, for example, having the challenge with the supply disruption, for example. Everything can be, you know, be great in thoughts or in concepts, but the catching up, you know, of that, what the people miss in the last 2-3 years, can lead to the one or to the other direction. So we need to canalize all these forces somewhere. And also, I mean, the design, where, I mean, Ibrahim also will let us know his vision as well, and I'm very much sure, which will be more than in his book Future Ready Retail, where he really contains many components of a global retail vision and revival, let's say. I do think what we have seen is how we need to work with the organism of a real estate change. It's not only just 4 walls and the ceiling and that's it. You know, how we can already downsize, how we can see the future. We need to implement, because if you put a stone on another stone, it's not that easy to take it out. If you have long-term contracts, like 10 to 15 years, you can maybe, you know, not act as you wish. And but nevertheless, all what he's saying is clear. And I do think as well, what I said in the beginning, the experience is very important. And I see that people are seeking a lot of new experiences, new stores, you know, new local, and maybe not, you know, the ones they are used to be, and they are looking for something new. This is interesting. What I see when I'm in London or in Paris or in Istanbul, you know, or in Rome, I see people, you know, they're seeking something new, and they also recognize something new. Then they expect this. So there's a huge chance for all of us, but we need to find this out. And it's not only how we think and how we would say it goes to a certain direction. It needs to be really evaluated. It needs to be found out. And that's definitely a huge change, what I have seen. The people are seeking for something new. If this is the final solution or the final concept we will find, I don't know. But I do see the really different people, different ages, you know, they're really looking for a new innovation as well. They are not only looking for experience, they try to find something else, what make them more confident. And we need to observe this, and we need to be very close to this. And I agree with Ibrahim, this is not only setting up a yield and then backwards sitting just and waiting for the next couple of years. This will be no more the future of retail and real estate.
Well, thank you very much. And I'd like to actually specifically ask you, Ibrahim, about the design process and how important design plan to be a part of this development.
Sorry, I will answer that definitely, but do you mind if I just respond to Yurdaer? I think he brings up two very, very important points. The first is about demographics, and I think part of the disruption is this shift from demographic segmentation to interest segmentation, and I think we are seeing the disruption and the kind of irrelevance in many ways of a demographic approach to segmentation. We're seeing no longer are consumers divided into age groups. We have a blurring of that, and we kind of talk about Generation C, and Generation C, which is not about demographics, it's about life. And it stands for C for control. So everyone now wants to be in control of their experience, of their purchase, of their engagement with brands. They also want to co-create, and they want to be part of the kind of creative process of a brand. They want to shape that. They want to be part of a community. Another C, a community, which is brand at its center. And they also, very importantly, have a conscience. They care about the role a brand plays in the world and in their lives. And we can see what happened to Patagonia, a £3 billion business, and they put it into a kind of charitable status. So we're seeing trends where consumers are turning to brands that have a purpose and demonstrate a purpose. Also, a very interesting statistic from Accenture recently, I think it's in my book, if I remember rightly. 34% of consumers they surveyed decided to not engage with the brand because of the way it behaves. Not because of what it sells, not because of the price or the experience, just the way it behaves. So I think this idea of demographic segmentation, and my point being is that all those traits I talk about are nothing to do with age. And I think that's really, really key. And the second point Yurdaer made is a very important point, is about everyone wants something new. And I agree totally. But what I would also add to that is not only do they want things that are new, but they want newness. And newness means, my point of view, is that in any given brand experience, that brand may remain the same. It may be the same store, the same location, but what it's offering must be constantly refreshed and constantly new. So newness is about the constant change, because customers are really, really bored. And we're seeing statistics now of 40% of customers dropping a basket because of a queue. We don't even wait 10 seconds for a YouTube video to buffer.
Exactly.
Apparently, I read that our attention span has now gone to 6 seconds, less than a goldfish.
Wow.
So these big trends are really driving the way we should. Right. So sorry, I digress. But Yurdaer made 2 points, important points. I would like to have contributed to. So design process. Okay, so you asked specifically about Portland. Okay, so our design process and our whole reason for being on this planet as a business is based on one mantra, or two mantras that we have. Firstly, we say our mantra in the business is people and places, not buildings and spaces. We passionately believe that place is not made by architecture. Place is made by people. And unfortunately, many of our clients, their first step is to go to an architect. And we've got to do much more work before we get into the shapes of buildings and the shapes of master plans. And I'll explain what that means. And the second mantra is, for us, is citizen first. We must always remember that people are citizens first before they're consumers. And too many brands take people for granted as consumers. And I think that is not going to work in the future. So our process is based on those two big sort of mantras, and our process is a 5-step process. We start with what we call culture. Always we start with culture, which means basically we identify and explore and define the trends the consumer and societal trends that will drive behavior and expectations of our audience. And those trends are very, very kind of important and very complicated in many instances, because we drill down into not just what the trend is, but why is it there, what's driving it, and more importantly, what is the insight from it. Anyone can go on the internet and type in consumer trends and give you 10 top trends. That's not what it's about. And if I would say one thing, trend forecasting is the biggest trend. So for us, it's the insight from the trend that will drive behavior. So first is culture. The second is what we call people. So from that understanding, we now then create profiles of the people we are trying to target, we're trying to engage with. What are their journeys? What are their missions? What part does this asset play in their life? Not what you can sell them. What part are you going to play in their life? So what is their life? You know, what is it like? So ethnographically, we drill into understanding exactly who our audience is. And as a world first, we are the world's first creative business that has our own data tool that maps social media and influencer behavior. So for any given location, any given street, city, town, region, even one building, we can identify within that space what people are doing on social media, what is important to them, who they follow, what influencers they follow, what brands they engage with, and much more importantly, what do they think about that? In other words, the sentiment. We call it sentiment. What is their opinion about it? So it's qualitative, not quantitative, and it's observational. We're not doing online surveys or focus groups where people tell you what you want to hear. This is what we call the human truth. We unearth the human truth. That's the basis of ethnography. We unearth the human truth to understand exactly, very clearly and truthfully what people want. So once we understand that, that's the people piece. The third step is what we call the place story. So from that, we craft the strategy. We define the strategy in the form of a narrative, of a story, as well as a strategic framework. But the result of that is a story. And that story is not about the architecture. It's not about the building, many places are. This is about the experience. It's defining the experience. What is the proposition? And we obviously, this is complicated, but we then bring it down to an elevator pitch, if you like. And then we try to encapsulate it in what we call a one-word equity, one word that defines what this experience is from the point of view of different audiences. Those audiences sometimes are our customers, but those audiences could also be our investor, could be a local authority, a local government. It could be media. So we've got to think about how we position, how we narrate that story to different audiences. Then the fourth step is what we call space. So that is we now only at the fourth step start designing the master plan, understanding the districts, the synergies between the different components, different categories, how the public realm connects to the tenanted spaces, how the inside connects to the outside. How does this asset become part of the urban grain, part of the streetscape? How does the brand begin to work? How does that whole kind of brand positioning work? And many other things around the master plan. And then the fifth step, and only the fifth step, do we start thinking about architecture. What is the shape of the building? What is the design of the public spaces? What is the design of the shopfront guidelines, the furniture, the branding, the wayfinding, and all the design components that we work on? That's our approach.
Thank you very much. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So now if we could move on actually to a question for both participants. Perhaps we can start with Yurdaer Bey, Mr. Kahraman. So where do you think the future of the retail industry evolves? And how is design, as we've just been discussing, how is design affecting this? We know that you've won global awards in the field of architecture, so we'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Before coming to this, what Ibrahim said regarding the stages for coming to the architecture concept, this is really true. If we go through different cities or countries, we do see already set up real estate monuments, let's say, sometimes even, where we see that these concepts are not working because the 4 steps, the stages before, haven't been done. And for this reason, for example, we are also known for this. Sometimes we can help, sometimes we cannot help. I mean, it could be us or it could be Ibrahim and also another company. As you know, we have also set up Fiba Commercial Property Management, which is our asset management company, where we are having the services like leasing, management, operation of shopping malls or other real estate like offices, hotels, and where we have also our own architecture, marketing and communication, and the different areas which you need for proper asset management. There we have seen that we should have changed a lot in some concepts. And that means like resizing or downsizing and making a part of the mall in an open area, as well as refurbishing or renovating, giving the retailers the right sizes. This is also very interesting because when you put or set up an architecture and you have already the areas defined and you fulfill them with the retailers, and then you have the challenge to convince a retailer saying, my concept is an average going 200 to 300 square meters. I cannot entertain 500 square meters. It's so difficult, and vice versa. I mean, you can also shrink this down. So I do think this is very important. We need to be very close to the customers, visitors, environment, and to the people, and to the needs of the people as well. And then we need to have a concept where we are, for example, also having the opportunity in the future to change, to act, to react very quickly in terms of the design, even to change. And here as well, in the beginning, we talked about the contracts of different, for example, retailers and users, but the design needs to be also more, let's say, mobile than immobile, to be, to make a change as well. And here we are really looking to the right concepts. The real estate is important, but the form of it and the usage of it is crucial as well. And retailers must change. There are a lot of parts they need to be more, on the digital world, as we said, they compared, to the manual processing, for example, that you have maybe done a great job in the last decades, but today the speed is a huge challenge as well. If you want to reach the speed, that is also a precondition to be able to change, to market new situations and values. You need to go away, from manual processing, and you need to change to new technologies as well. And this is not only important for real estate developers, investors, funds, or landlords, but also for retailers. And I do think compared with that, and to follow the customer needs and as well the customer's loyalty, and to understand not only to give the customers some points by purchasing some goods, or to where they have done, having a dinner that they get the 10th dinner for free. I think this is over. This is something what was interesting 10 years, 15 years ago. This is totally different today, and the people change, and they will change more. So we need to be updated, we need to be quick, and we need to be on the same level. People are changing. If we are behind them, we will never enter to this world. And then we can never talk about, what is the future retail. We need to understand the people, and therefore we need to give also a lot of chances to younger people as well. Today, the universities, when we go to universities and making lectures, for example, we see new ideas, new values, new opinions. We never thought about that. Some companies needs to be also refreshed in that manner. We need to give them the chance, to talk, to speak, to share their ideas, and that we understand where we need to go, that we understand where we need to be in the next 5 years, which will then stop. Then you need to have another, let's say, goal for the next years maybe, but we cannot plan for the next 10, 15, 20 years anymore. And for this, set up. We need to question every area we are working in, even the operation of a real estate and the leasing of a shopping mall, the architecture, how I can change it, if I need it, even in 3, 4, 5 years, and what kind of setups I'm doing as well. People business. I mean, we need people who understand this. I mean, if you have colleagues who are not in that vision, or they are far away from this thoughts, then you have a problem as a company, as an organism, and then the movements will be not that quick, and then you can be quickly out of the competition, and this doesn't help. And so therefore, I do think there are coming a lot of points together where we need to understand really people's thoughts, behavior, and not only in a local part or in a country, but also in a consensus of how's the world in the different areas, how are the countries, in the different parts of the world, and how are the concepts today. And we are bringing from China concepts to Western or Eastern Europe. We see that there you have a lot of changes, concepts, inside, and you go in, you make experiences you never made as a customer. When you see this and compare this to a common store, which is used to have, manual processing, let's say the last 20 years, then the visitor is seeing immediately the difference, and you are out of the business because you couldn't refresh yourself. You are not up to date, and you cannot catch up. And but the people, they are up to date. They can catch up. They change quick their minds. So these are really examples we did, for example, we really have done. And on the other hand, that makes me also happy that my teams in the different part of our asset management company, in terms of leasing, managing, operational, shopping malls, offices, residential products, or hotels, that we are really up to date. And I think this is a topic where we to deepen, maybe not today, but in another, let's say, Fiba Talks, and with Ibrahim and also other friends and colleagues as well.
Well, thank you very much. This has been very dynamic and empathetic, and it seems like the future of retail needs to be dynamic and empathetic as well.
It is.
So just to close the conversation, unfortunately, I'd like to ask both of you if you have any final words, anything that this has brought into your mind that you'd like to share with us.
Ibrahim, go ahead.
Final word, my God. Well, I suppose one thing we talk to retail people in the retail business is, up to now, it's been a fantastic thing in retail and in branding, if you're a brand, to be a responsive business, to find out what your customers want and respond and give them what they want. Unfortunately, because of the rapidly changing world we live in, being a responsive business is no longer enough. We have to be a predictive business. So what we're going to try and do, we try and help our clients shift from being a responsive business to being a predictive business. That's the first thing. The second one is this idea of shifting from a product business to a story business. That is all about not being what we call a buy brand. Mm-hmm. A buy brand is a brand, and it could be a shop, it could be a brand, it could be a shopping center. It's there to sell things. And we think consumers now no longer want to engage with buy brands. They want to engage with join brands. How do you shift from being a buy brand to being a join brand? How do you shift from having customers to having fans? Fandom, we call it fandom, is really, really critical objective for any place, any center, any brand. How do you create fans and advocates, not just customers? Because customers are fickle. They're a customer one day and they'll be a customer to someone else. So I suppose my summary as a statement is, and my message, I suppose, to potential clients is let us help you disrupt your business before someone else does.
Thank you. Yurdaer?
Well, amazing, Ibrahim. Thank you. I mean, for this very nice statement. I give your statement. I have been in London last week, and I have been in a bookstore where I have seen a private come together, and where people were in the fourth floor, I think. And then I have been in Fortnum and Mason, where I have seen the ground floor, there was also a private community. And then on the fourth floor, a bank, which set up a panel and a summit and a come together. And in between customers and people, and in between both locations, I've seen this, what Ibrahim said, local stores people are seeking for new stores and for new experiences, and then smelling, going, seeing. Then I have been, because Ibrahim did a nice comment on LinkedIn regarding Selfridges when he make a picture outside with the yellow letters. I remember I have looked at that, Ibrahim, and then I went in, and then I have seen again decoration concepts, for example. So I have seen in that 5 to 6 hours impressed me so much, touch my different senses, that in a so short time we covered what is needed to really bring people this experience closer and also to be successful. And I can only recommend to everybody who is listening to us as well to really find these areas, to find these added values, and then to find their own ways of complemented or adjusted or however disrupted, as Ibrahim said. That would be my statement. And I'm very positive and looking very positive forward. And if we do our homework in that manner, quite carefully and strong, I believe that we will have a very good future as well.
Thank you.
That's great, Yurdaer. That's great. Tell me, can I leave you one final thought and your listeners to one final thought? Yurdaer, that was fantastic. And yeah, I agree with you about the stuff going on in London. Just one final thought, really. And I often say this, there are 3 types of people in this world and 3 types of business leader. Those who make it happen, those who let it happen, and those who wondered what happened.
Exactly. That's great.
Don't wonder what happened.
Exactly.
Very, very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your stories and your insights. And we look forward to our next talk. And thank you for joining us today.
Well done, Sevil. You're brilliant. You're very good. And thank you there.
Thank you so much, Sevil. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Thank you.
My love to everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye from Istanbul.